How's it going, everyone? Hopefully you're doing well. Today I'm going to give you my feedback on the Equipment 2.0 changes that are happening right now on the Sandbox test server. Now, before we get into this, everything you see here is subject to change. You could see all of this be added to the game or none of it at all. As you can see, like they've been testing out the shell rebalancing, etc. We haven't seen that on the live server yet. So everything you see here is just testing and does not mean that it's being added to the game at all. This is just stuff that they want to float around in their heads and, you know, go and give it out to the people to test. So yeah, everything you see here, subject to change, keep that in mind. Okay, so let's start with the positives, shall we? Let's move on to the 277 as I have a clean loadout. The more equipment that are in the game now means more variety, and you can kind of build builds for the tank around that. So for example, let's say I want to have the ultimate survivability. You could go get Spool-Liner, you could go and get the increased hit points. You know, you can just build the tank how you want it to be. This is good for, like, you know, casual players and stuff like that. For experienced players or people that want to stay ultra competitive, this isn't really useful. But you got to remember that the majority of people do just play this casually and just, you know, play a few games. So this is good because they can just choose and customize the tank to their heart's content now, rather than being, you know, everyone is just limited to vert stabs, optics, vents, or you know, and a gun rammer. So, you know, now we can actually choose and play around with these equipments and actually get builds going for the tanks. So this is good. I like this. As you can see up here as well, we've got a clear and precise equipment category slot, where you can see, for example, firepower, survivability, mobility, and then scouting or spotting, however you want to say it. So yeah, all of this is good. I like this a lot. However, this does bring me on to my next point, which is a bit of a negative, because like, while you've added this new UI system, what you had before, where you could just click this and it'll bring up everything here, why couldn't we just have these category slots above what we already had? And then you could just click it and it would show all of them. Like, because right now you have to click and you go into another screen. That's taking extra time out of setting up your tank. And then it gets even worse is when you have to click ammo. Where's my consumables gone? So I now have to go into another slot. Sorry, another slot here to go into my consumables. This is taking double the time of what it should be taking. Because before I can just quickly go, yep, ammo, equipment, consumables, done. This doesn't take too long, and now you've made it take twice as long for no real reason. It's taken a real step back in user experience, in my opinion, and the usability of the user interface. So please try and, like, I mean, repairs just does this screen now. I don't know why. Like, why can't we just have everything here on repairs like we did before? Who knows? I mean, this whole repairs thing is kind of useless. Why don't you just have a repair automatically button right here rather than bringing up another screen for no real reason? So yeah, the UI, in my opinion, is clunky and not really needed to be changed. As I've said, you have a great UI system. Why change it? I understand that you want to update and keep your game fresh and stuff like that, but when you do have something that is very, very good, you don't need to change it. Like, it's good. Please keep it as it is. To really test this out, we needed a lot more credits, and it should have been like the common test, or public test, where everything is unlocked. You can just go through, unlock what you want or need, and then test out the tank. Also, all of this should have been just free to demount and free to buy. I don't see why it cost money, because hardly any of us on the standard player base have every single tank unlocked. there's a very small number of people that have every single tank unlocked in the game, compared to the majority of people. So not unlocking everything and not giving us enough money is really limiting the actual test results. I can almost guarantee that people will find more and more builds that are better if we could get more and more, test results from the different tanks. Like, I can't go right now and go and get a Jagdpanzer 100. I don't have enough credits. I don't have enough XP. So yeah, if you made everything free or everything just unlocked, and then you can just buy the tank for free and then test it, it would solve a lot of these issues. It would actually allow us to test these tanks for you and find out what's good, what's bad. But at the moment, it's people that have already got money or tanks to sell, and then they can also demount the equipment, because for some reason it costs 200 bonds still to demount the equipment off a tank that has a bond equipment. Considering the fact that the majority of us paid 15,000-ish, give or take, considering on the discount for double item, to actually purchase bond equipment, 200 bonds to then remove it from your tank is just robbery. Like, I don't see why this is a thing. You could even make it that it's just 20 gold, so it's 10 more than the bounty equipment. Or make it 30 gold, I don't care, whatever. But if you removed that for gold, it would, one, give you more money, because people would be using more gold in the game to move it around their tank. And two, you can't really test it. Like, for example, right now, I can't go and test the Leo. I don't have enough bonds to go and demount it. So that slot right there, yes, I can move it around, which is another good feature, but I can't get rid of it. I can't get rid of this. And I know that when it goes into the live server, you've said that everything will be demounted and stuff like that. And it was demounted, but I was testing around and then I ran out of bonds because I'm just demounting stuff. And I can no longer do this because I just can't afford to. And the same thing will be if this goes into the live server. Bond equipment is going to be exactly the same kind of thing. Bond equipment is just flat out better than everything else. And it doesn't even need, it doesn't get chosen on the specialization slot. And it doesn't need to, because 8.5% better vents. Like, think about that. 6.5%, which is usually 5, that's 3%, 3.5% better on bond vents. I don't know why you increased it again, although it doesn't really matter. I don't see why bounty is now less than bond, but okay. That's, I don't want to get into that. The problem is that it just costs way too much to move them between tanks. And when you get on the live server, you're going to be, for example, let's say you have a strat in Clan Wars, which is what bond equipment people are going to be playing. At least the majority of them. They might say, okay, let's go and choose, because there'll be all of these new things. Let's say they're going to camp. I know this is very sad, but they're going to camp on Himmelsdorf and you want the extra HP. A lot of them are just going to say, I can't do it. It's going to cost me 600 bonds. No. Like, you've given these new equipment, and then just when the time comes to actually make strategies and around them, a lot of the players just aren't going to do it because it costs way too much to demount it and then put it back on the tank and then just demount it later and keep changing. If you made it for gold, it would solve this issue. Another thing that I want to bring up is these class-specific slots or specialized slots in the game. I don't see the point of them because you've introduced all of these new equipment and then you've said, well, actually, you should really put that there. Like, why not just leave it down to the player? Don't give these extra stats for no real reason, especially when on heavy tanks, a survivability. No one's really going to use these in a competitive aspect of the tank. And I mean, sure, okay, the standard player might, but honestly, why would you forego some of these for firepower, for example? And yes, for some reason, mobility is another one on heavy tanks. Again, I don't really understand this. Surely it should be mobility firepower rather than survivability. Like, I just don't see how this is good for the game with having these specialized slots. It should just be everything is exactly the same as it is, especially when you run into things such as an EBR. Now, my EBR at the moment is set up for the broken 18 seconds spotting time that is on this tank. How? Well, because I've got 4 extra seconds here because of this extra slot that will detect the target for 4 seconds longer. And then I have the Eagle Eye perk. Is it Eagle Eye? No, sorry, designated target. And then we have the directive for designated target as well. This gives me 2 seconds right here. And then this also gives me 2 seconds. So an extra 4 seconds, meaning plus 8 seconds while the target is visible. Which means I can go and drive into the enemy's base right at the start of the game, spot everyone, and then they will remain spotted for 18 seconds. Yeah, that's no, that's completely fine. That just shouldn't really be in the game at all. This equipment right here should be just removed from the game. This does not need to happen. The other equipment's not too bad because like they don't really increase anything too drastically. But this 4 seconds, yeah, you don't need this, especially when you have the designated target perk already in the game. And you don't need this also, minus 4 seconds to duration of your vehicle visible. If you remove this and this, it removes kind of... A lot of people are going to get very confused when they start getting spotted for another 4 seconds out of nowhere just because they have this equipment slot. Especially if they have this. If they're spotted for 18 seconds, that's a long time. Especially the newer players. And I can put this on any tank and it makes no difference. I could put this on my tier 8 EBR, for example. And where even is it? Right here. Well, I'm not going to put it on, but plus 4%, plus 4 seconds, sorry. It doesn't scale at all. So, like, what you see here is just what you get. Like, it's going to be spotted for 18 seconds even at tier 8. Which means I can see tier 6s for 18 seconds. Like, that just shouldn't be a thing, okay? Like, at least in my opinion, that really shouldn't be a thing. You've done a lot of good stuff to help the new players out, which I'm going to move on to a bit later on. But this, I don't think is very good for the game. Like, these specialized slots or anything like that, just no. And improved radio set, just no. The next thing I want to talk about is Binos and Camo Net. Now, you've removed this from every other tank apart from the TDs. And honestly, I don't see why. I mean, maybe Camo Net, but Camo Net doesn't really affect too many people apart from the scouts and TDs. So I see why you've left it on the TDs for Camo Net. But binoculars is something that a lot of free-to-play players use all the time. It's free to demount. It's free to move from tank to tank. That's why free-to-play players use it. They don't need more than one, so they can just keep moving it around the tanks as and when they play it. And it gives them great view range without really, sacrificing credits at all. That's why they use it. And now you've removed it from them to be able to use it on any tanks apart from the tank destroyers. I mean, for some reason, the E25 still gets access to this, so the camo rating on this thing is just absurd, because have a look at that. There you go. It's ridiculous. Like, there's no reason why this thing should still get a camo net. It shouldn't. It shouldn't get a camo net. This is a good way of actually, well, it's sort of nerfing it. I mean, even without a camo net, it's still broken, but you get what I mean. Whereas if I was a free-to-play player and I wanted to say put binos on this tank, I can't. There's just not even an option for it. You can have minus 10% concealment penalty after shooting, or you can have plus 2% concealment, or do you want coated optics? That's the only choices that you have. So I don't see why this is a thing. It's a direct screw you to free-to-play players almost, and it's really limiting what they can do in the game, because they are going to be now at a disadvantage, especially in view range, compared to people that pay to win and just get everything unlocked as they would. Okay, so the final thing that I want to talk about is the lower tiers. Now, you've made some good changes. So now it's going to change. So if I just go and buy tier 1 quickly, for example, as you can see here now, it doesn't have any equipment or consumables. So you don't get access to anything else. All you get access to is the tier 1 tank. This is good. It's going to stop seal clubbers from being able to just go into tier 1 games and just pad in their stats, because they know exactly how to play the game, and you're playing against either bots or God knows what else, or new players, especially the new players. It's just going to drive them away from the game if you get an experienced player just absolutely decimating them on their first game, because they don't understand the mechanics, and they've got like Brothers in Arms crew, which isn't going to change, but they've got, for example, large med kit, large repair kit, food. They've got millions of equipment on their tank, all at tier 1. It doesn't make sense. So yes, this is a good change. However, you've then taken kind of 2 steps forwards and then 1 step back, because now you can then put equipment on a tier 2 when it doesn't need to be. This should just go. And consumables, I can go and put cola on it. So as long as I have credits, all I have to do is just go and put cola on my tank. And then I am 10% better than anyone else that's not using it. Even if you play up to tier 3, it gets like even worse, because now Panzer 2Js can have a repair kit and food. So that doesn't really make sense. And 2 equipment slots. So yeah, this just doesn't make sense. As I've said, you've taken 2 steps forwards with tier 1, and it's a good start. Don't get me wrong, like, this is good. But we really need this to go, and equipment to maybe start at tier 4. Because at tier 4, you start to understand the game, and you do get the free equipment slots and the free consumable slots. So at tier 4, this is when you start to understand how to play the game a little bit more. So yeah, like, it makes sense. Equipment at tier 4, fine. Especially when you can see tier 5, so yeah, it makes sense. But from tier 1 all the way through to tier 3, you shouldn't have any equipment. It should all be like this. However, you do need free consumable slots, but it should only be like this. Like, it should never... food should not be a thing until tier 5. At tier 5, then you can start getting food on your tanks, because you're going to get +2 matchmaking. It's going to start making, sense almost. So yeah, food at tier 5, and all it is that you have access to when you're at tier 1 to 4 is just a small repair kit, a small first aid kit, and a manual fire extinguisher. That's the only things that you have access to in your consumables. Maybe you should even give them to the players for free. Like, just saying, like, maybe at tier 1 they should get this for free, and then tier 2 they have to pay normal price for them, just so that they can understand kind of how it works at tier 1. Maybe that would be a good idea. But so yeah, on the whole, tier 1 to 3 no equipment, and then tier 4 gets equipment, and tier 1 to 4 gets only this consumables, and then tier 5 it's all back to normal. As you can see right here, everyone gets everything anyway, so the directive is included now. So yeah, tier 5, not a problem with this. Yes, people are still going to seal club at tier 5. There's not really too much you can do. However, it is mid-tier, and if they come against someone who is in a higher tier and just better than them, then they're going to get absolutely destroyed. So, yeah, I think that would be a good place to be. And yeah. Okay, so final thoughts. The new equipment is good. I like the changes that you're making, well, majority of the changes that you're making, apart from the ones that I've already spoke about, but I'm not going to repeat myself. The free-to-play player really does need those binos, in my opinion, because you're taking away something that people rely on. But besides everything else, I think that adding new equipment to the game will just make the game more fun for the average player, and just more enjoyable, because they can now set up their tank how they want it. For example, like, they could set up a Type 5 like this, you can have it so that you've got a heavy spool liner, you've got it so you don't get stunned as much, and you can now go 30 instead of, 25. So, yeah, overall I think the changes are good. There are just a few things that I've already said that I would change or not add in general. But yeah, if you did enjoy this video, then you know what to do. Hopefully you found it helpful if anyone at Wargaming was watching this. I don't think you were, but hey, if you were, then there you go. Yeah, come follow me on Twitch and join the Discord, and yeah, I'll see you all in a bit.